So I'm going to show you, I'm going to use I wouldn't go straight in with my hand. I could with Hercules because he's so docile, but just for an example for at home, if you have a python or a boa that's particularly reactive or anything like that, what I like to do is hello and welcome to the Tye-Dyed Iguana channel. My name is Collin, and in today's video we're going to be discussing some how-tos as far as handling larger species of snakes. So this would include very large ball pythons, boa constrictors, you name it. So any of the larger species of snake, most of these principles you're going to see and hear about today will cover today's topic. Now, as far as handling goes, these are just the experiences of our store and our experiences and a little bit of my personal experience with working with large snakes over my career. And not all of this may apply to your situation, but I hope that you can get away some helpful tips out of this video. Maybe it makes your life a little bit easier if you're having some difficulty when it comes to handling or dealing with a larger size snake. So let's head on over to Hercules and we'll talk a little bit more. So we're over here looking at Hercules today. We're going to be using Hercules as an example to preface this video as well. So here in the store, we don't sell any larger species. The reason we don't deal with large constrictors especially is just because they get too large for the average person to handle. So we don't sell any large snakes at the store. But however, if you have a baby at home or you're maybe considering working with a larger snake, maybe today's video is going to be helpful for you as far as tips. But we're just going to be utilizing Hercules to show you. Hercules is not for sale. He's just an education ambassador that lives at our store full time. But Hercules is a Burmese python. So of the larger snake species, Burmese pythons are very well known for their docile temperament and their laid-back attitude. I like to call them the Labrador Retriever of the large constrictors. They're very tame in general, unless you have a wild one, but the captive bred ones, 99% of the time, are super laid-back. As a baby, they can be a little bit huffy and puffy sometimes, and if any of you go back on our YouTube channel when Hercules was a baby, you know, when he's like a foot or two long, sometimes they are a little bit huffy, but they're still just a baby. And the reason for that, of course, is when you're smaller, the world's a lot scarier, so you have to protect yourself a lot more. But these guys by far are the gentle giants of the large snake world. Today, we're over here with Hercules enclosure, like I said. Mainly when it comes to handling these guys, you'll see I have a hook, and you're like, Collin, why is your hook so small? Well, we'll talk about that here in a minute when it comes to handling these guys. Snakes in general, I don't like to consider them aggressive. Snakes are truly not aggressive. They're either acting defensively or reactive. So reactive means they tend to act in the mirror of the actions you're taking. So based upon your behavior, your body language, and the way you're handling them, the majority of the time, they're going to act and mirror back in a similar way. Now there are exceptions, of course, just like people. All snakes have individual personalities, so your mileage may vary. So you could have, and I'm sure they're out there, but for example, Hercules is super laid back, but there are Burmese pythons out there that are more temperamental. So this will be relative to your individual specimen. But in general, when it comes to handling these guys, I like to use a small instrument. Some people I see use a paper towel tube or a paper towel roll. I'm just using this small hook here. When it comes to handling him, of course, I'm not going to utilize the hooked end for this. You're going to see what I'm actually going to do with this. There's something when it comes to large constrictors called tap training. I'm going to show you a little bit of that today. But by doing this, what it'll help to do is sort of desensitize that feeding response that many snakes have. Now, Hercules really doesn't have that strong of a feeding response whatsoever because he's so laid back and he's so frequently handled. But I'm going to use this tool to show you guys how I deal with these larger snakes personally when I'm getting them in and out of their enclosure. Once they're out of the enclosure, generally these guys know, hey, I'm not being fed, hey, I'm not being worked with today, I'm just out and about, I'm here to just relax and be handled. But sometimes, of course, if you have a snake at home, maybe they're very conditioned, maybe if you feed them in the enclosure, sometimes they're very food reactive. So I'll utilize Hercules here. We'll take a look at some of his behaviors and I'll walk you through it, how we go. So anytime you open the enclosure of a larger snake, I'm not going to immediately put my hand right here. Now, Hercules wouldn't do anything, even if I did, but it's a good practice. I like to move my hand a little bit back from the glass. And if we look at Hercules here, you can see his tongue is flicking. So this is a generally good indicator that he's in exploratory mode or he's in a thinking mode. So generally when the snakes are sitting like that and their tongue is not reactive, the tongue is not moving, it generally means that they're observing something in their environment that's going on, so they're seeing what's going to come next. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to use I wouldn't go straight in with my hand. I could with Hercules because he's so docile, but just for an example for at home, if you have a python or a boa that's particularly reactive or anything like that, what I like to do is I just like take my instrument here. This gives me a little bit of an extension of my hand. I'm not using it to manipulate him. I'm using it sort of to just stimulate him. So if I just give him a light rub on the temple, and then if I just give him a light rub on the chin, So this kind of counteracts the feeding mode. And so from this point, I can just come in. Once we're past this point, he knows that I'm not feeding him or anything like that, and then I can actually get him out of the enclosure and work with him. Now, when it comes to a snake this size as well, you do want to support them. I don't like to hold them with hooks or anything like that because as you can see, this tiny little hook puts a lot of pressure on these guys' ribs, and he has lots of ribs that go down the length of his body. So when it comes to handling, I like to make sure he's supported at all times. And you just want to hold the entire body. Now, when it comes to handling a snake of this size by yourself, generally I'd recommend you have a second person. 99% of the time you wouldn't need it, but the one time, like if he is holding on to your wrist or anything like that, you definitely don't want to be in the position where your hands are tied, especially if you're like at home alone. It's not that he's intentionally trying to hurt you, it's that he just wants to wrap on and feel tight and feel secure, but it can be hard to hold on to a snake this size. So as you can see, if I do hold on to him by myself, I either put him over one shoulder or I kind of drape him, just like that. And then I always keep the business end away from my face. It's not that he would strike me in the face or anything like that. However, why would we even give him the opportunity? He wouldn't like aggressively strike my face, but sometimes, as you know, snakes can be head shy. Now, when it's a 1-foot ball python, if they are reactive, they're gonna just strike back real quick. But, you know, why would we get in their face if we don't have to? So when it comes to handling, very gentle movements. And the other thing too is, I see a lot of folks, when they are handling these guys, I see a lot of people do this, like the hesitation. You don't want to ever be hesitant when you're handling. We want to be nice, confident movements, and we want to let them know that we're not causing them any issue. They don't need to be nervous as well. So when you're handling, nice, gentle movements. And as you can see, the Burmese python in particular, he's making it too easy on me today. Hercules is very easy to work with. But anytime we get him out, remember, a soft instrument, a paper towel roll, a hook, give him a nice rub on the top of the head and the chin. Don't smack him, don't bonk him. Just a nice rub on the chin. That'll let them know you're not being fed or anything like that, and it's time to come out. Of course, this may not work for all snakes, but in general, these are some tips when dealing with a larger snake especially. Another thing is too, depending on where your enclosure is, I generally recommend keeping a larger snake at least waist height or higher. In the wild, of course, predators come from above. So if you're keeping a snake low on the ground, like if you have a 6-foot enclosure on the bottom, of course the snake is going to be a little bit more apprehensive to you naturally if you're coming in like that. And then you never want to have your face right at the snake's level. So having it at this nice waist level, it's more comfortable for him, it's more comfortable for you. So keep those things in mind when you're handling your snake. If you have any questions about handling snakes or anything reptiles in general, be sure to drop a message online or see us in store. Have a great day.